Yeah, lazy loading versus eager loading. This is the most asked Hibernate or JPA interview question. Very important performance concept and frequently asked in Spring Boot interviews. So what is fetching? Fetching means loading related entities from the database. So Hibernate decides when related data should load. So two major fetching strategies exist. One is lazy loading and the other is eager loading. So as we discussed, fetching means loading related entities from the database, right? So there are two ways we can fetch the entities. That is a lazy loading versus and a, eager loading. So is a real-time example. Suppose order entity contains the customer details, right? Should customer load immediately when we load the order entity, or load only when needed, right? This is decided by fetch strategy. So which type of fetch strategy you are using, it will depend on that. So what is lazy loading? So related entity not loaded immediately. So Hibernate loads data only when accessed. So it will improve the initial performance and default for many relations. So at the you can see the at the rate many to 1 inside that fetch equal to fetch type. We are mentioning the fetch type as lazy. When you see the entity, right, there is a relationship between the two entities like order and the customer table. So at that time we used to use this many to 1 or 1 to many annotations. Along with that we have to mention the fetch type, whether it is a lazy or a eager. So here for that customer we mentioning this. So customer loads only when accessed, right? Because we are using the lazy loading. So additional query generator later if you want fetch this customer details. So what happens internally in lazy loading? So load orders only, step 1, and customer not fetched initially. So there is a relationship between the order and the customer. So each order associated customer is existing, but still when you load the orders, customer details won't fetched initially because we are using the lazy loading. And if you want the customer details later, whenever required, if you call the get customer, at that time Hibernate fires the additional query to fetch the get customer details. So query 1, suppose example select star from orders. Later, so at that time when you do a query of select star from orders, only orders details will be come and customer details it won't come because it's a lazy loading. Later when you need the customer details, at that time you have to do, it will do select star from customer where ID equal to 101. So extra query generated only when needed. So what is the advantage of this lazy loading? Better initial performance and loads only required data and reduces unnecessary memory usage and is good for large relationships. Suppose if you take example orders, you need only orders initially, then it is a better, it will be performance wise initially it is good because we are not really retrieving all the related data. So only when we are required at that time only we are fetching the customer details. So that's why it loads only required data and reduces the unnecessary memory usage and good for large relationships. So problems with lazy loading. It can create the N+1 query problems. So too many DB queries possible. Lazy initialization exception may occur. Performance issue if used incorrectly. Suppose uh, yeah, we will discuss about this N+1 problem. Suppose we are using the lazy loading, and when we retrieve the orders, suppose customer details didn't come. So what you have to do? But you need the customer details. At that time you have to loop through the orders, and for each order we have to fetch one query to fetch the customer details by using the customer ID equal to 100 or and again loop through, and for the second order associated customer details you have to fetch by executing the query to fetch the customer details by using the customer ID as 102 or 102. So like this, so DB many DB queries we have to one query for retrieving the, suppose 100 orders are there, so one query we have to retrieve for retrieving the orders, and after that for each customer, suppose 100 orders are there, 100 queries we have to fetch, uh, we have to execute to fetch the customer details. So 1 plus 100 is a 101 problems. like N+1 query problem. So too many DB queries are possible in this scenario. So what is eager loading? So related entities loaded immediately. Hibernate fetches everything together. No additional lazy queries later. Useful when related data always needed. So if you see the many to one, fetch type is eager. So we are using the fetch type is eager for the customer entity. So customer loaded immediately. Data available upfront. Suppose order plus customer loaded together. When you retrieve the orders, customer details also come because it's a eager loaded. So Hibernate may use internally join query. So no extra query later. Suppose if you want the customer details later, there is no separate query because you are already customer details are loaded along with the orders. So data available immediately. So when you eager loading query flow, how it will be like select star from orders, join the customer. So single query fetches the everything, all data loaded upfront. So advantage of eager loading is no lazy initialization exception, no additional lazy queries later. Good when related data always needed. When you needed the customer details also along with the orders, this is the better way to retrieve. So simpler access related entities. So loads unnecessary data sometimes. If you don't need the customer details upfront, it's a loading the unnecessary data, right? In the situation. So higher memory usage because we are loading the orders details and all the associated customer details. So higher memory usage is required. Can slow application performance and large object graphs becomes expensive. So very important interview point is lazy is not always better, eager is also not always better. Correct choice depends on use case. So in the initial page itself, you need both orders and customers. At the time, you have to use the eager loading. But initial page, you need only orders, and later point of the time you need the customer details means you will use the lazy loading based on your usage. So correct choice depends on use case. Performance optimization is a key. So best practice recommendation is prefer lazy loading in most cases. So after that, use join fetch when needed. Avoid unnecessary eager relationships. Optimize database queries carefully. So lazy versus eager loading comparison, like lazy load when needed, eager load immediately. Lazy is a better memory optimization, eager is simpler access but heavier loading. So lazy loading fetches related data only when accessed. Eager loading fetches related data immediately. Wrong fetching strategy created database performance issue. Very important Hibernate optimization concept. I hope you understand the difference between lazy loading and eager loading. So if you want more interview questions related to Java, Spring Boot, microservices, please visit the java2victory.com. It has a vast collection of interview questions. Thank you.